welcome to Flory Models, kit review time. Today we've got Revell's new tooled 172nd. This is the C-54 Skymaster. As you know, I'm quite a fan of the old prop type stuff. I love being up in Canada this year, seeing all the DC-4s and stuff flying around. So when this one came along, I thought, yep, that's definitely one for the stash. Okay, so in the box, as you can see, it's a big old box, too big even for my camera. We can see very nice artwork on the front. We can see this is going to be a big lump. We're talking 50 centimeters by 40 on this one. So it is going to be quite a large bird. Okay, as I said, this is a new tool. So we're expecting recessed panel line, recessed details, and some nice details, as you can see down in there. And then here, you've got your kit number 04877. Okay, a little bit on there, as you can imagine, the usual stuff. And in the box. So, as I said, this is still sealed. I have never looked in this one. So we just have to cut this guy open. It's nice to see Revell using a decent box instead of their horrible open-ended ones. Okay, so I don't know if that will stand. Oh, it will stand. There we go. So with Revell, what are we expecting? To be honest, we're expecting a quality kit at a very low price. Okay, you expect to get a little bit of flash, so I'm not going to worry about flash too much. We get the odd little sync mark and everything else, but because the price point of these guys, I don't actually worry about it too much. So you can see straight off the bat, we have got stuffed full of plastic in here. We've got a lot of plastic for your money. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll have a look at that in a moment. I'm just going to shove that over there. Okay, so we've got your usual bits and pieces. We've got some decals down there, and we've got the instruction sheet. Okay, so usual thing with Revell, we've got other bits and pieces. We've got some unused parts down here, so perhaps we've got other variants of this coming out. Okay, and then it is straight in. So down in here, we're going to start off with obviously making the nose wheel well. Okay, so that one's going to go in, and then the instrument panel up here on the top. Doesn't look like there's a decal for that one, so it looks like it's going to be a paint job. There again though, I don't think you're going to see much in the cockpit of this one, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Some simple dry brushing, livening up, taking care of the seats, I think you'll be absolutely fine. So usual thing, down there on the instrument, into the cockpits, all the trim wheels, the various bits and pieces going on there, some very nice touches, the seats and all the areas like that, and them obviously being fitted. Then we've got a bulkhead, which looks like we've got some nice detail going in on the front forward bulkhead on there. Okay, and then back, working your way through the crew compartment, and then obviously the back one, which is then going to be talking. So we've even got the beds down here for the crew and everything else like that, which is a very nice touch. Okay, and then moving back to the compartment, which is, this is something we'll speak about in a moment for our aftermarket, but you've got the forward part of the fuselage going in there. Then we've got all the seating. Obviously this is a transport type aircraft, so we're not expecting anything massive inside here. Okay, so we've got the fold down system for the racks, okay, right the way through, the end stowage, the front portion being put on there, and then it is straight into the gear, which looks to be quite complex, so it'll be interesting to see what that's like. Opening up a few little holes, internal glass work going in there, which is something I'll speak about in a moment if you want to do that route or a different technique. Opening up cabin doors, and then obviously sealing up the entire thing. Okay, and then down underneath, we've actually got a slip way of putting this in. So we've got an internal cabin and then to the external. All right, so we've got some nice little braces down there, which make sure it should line up. The door system, this big old cargo door, this is a cargo aeroplane, so obviously we could have that open to show up a lot of your nice detail in there. And then it's a case of working on the engines. Okay, straightforward with that one as well, making sure you get your alignments correct down there. Placing all of those in there. The main gear wells going into the number 2 and 3 engines. Okay, and then as you're working your way through, looks like you've got positionable flaps as well if you wanted to. So you can actually score those and have them with the flaps down, which is quite a nice touch. Okay, and then wing section going together, the actual coolers going in the top and everything else. One piece big wing system then fits up underneath, okay, which is another nice touch on this kit. Then we got some detail going on there if you are going to have it with the flaps down, as we were saying, which is quite a nice touch. Some nice activators down there. Some more of the activators in the various areas. Looks like we've got movable and positionable control surfaces on all of this, which is quite nice, so you can have them slightly drooped as well. Okay, and then the engine system going on there. Don't forget this is a radial engine, so obviously we've got lots of detail for those areas, which is quite a nice touch. Okay, and there's a little bit more about that going on there. Cowl flaps open or closed, again very nice. Okay, and right the way through, and then you've got the nose section going down on there, adding weight, otherwise you will end up with a tail sitter on this one. 10 grams, I always double it just to make sure. Okay, the wheels, obviously if you're going to be doing gear up, gear down, I imagine 90% of us will be going gear down on this one. Okay, looks like we've got hubs going on there as well, which is quite a nice touch, and then the wheels being attached to the brake drums, okay, which is what we see just down here. So the hubs go in and then onto these wheels. Very nice touch on that one. Some nice lines as well, so we've got the actual hydraulic lines going down in there for the brakes, which is another nice touch of detail. Okay, so actually some very nice details going down in here. All the mechanism for the gear doors and things like that being placed down on there. Again, some nice detail. We do like this. You can really go to town on this kit. These all important flaps we were saying about in the droop position, which I think 90% of us again would do because it's a nice touch. So that's those being put on there. Okay, so this is where you sort of, you know, the panic comes in. You've got your glass route going in, so obviously putting it in and then getting that to fit on there and having a nice finish, i.e. you don't notice there's a finish there, is going to be the hard part, okay? So we've obviously got a one-piece glass going to go down in there to be your front cockpit, which is pretty standard with all your airliner type things. Cargo door, I would do mine open obviously, but you could have it closed if you wanted to. Props going on, gear going on, gears on. This is all your lights, so you've got your tail lights going on there, the landing lights, navigation lights and all of those. Cockpit door, or cabin door shall we say, going into the cabin at the front. All the aerials being put on, more aerials being put on, more aerials being put on. Okay, and then obviously it's saying about adding thread or elastic line as we do for your aerials going underneath and on the top. This thing's covered in them. And if you do end up with this tail sitter, fear not, Revell have thought of that. It actually comes up for the loading jack, which goes on the back, which is something these aircraft do have to stop them being a tail sitter during loading. Very nice touch. And then into the markings. So we can see on this one, it's a lovely scheme. You've got that sort of, you know, metal finish, and then obviously you've got things like with the white and the blues and everything else. Actually, that's a really nice touch. So all of those going down on there. So two options. Okay, so as I say, you've got 1949, both 1949, but we've got troop carrier one down here, or you've got your traditional one. We've got the box art for the cargo, and that is it. As I say, actually very promising. Some nice kit. Not going to be a straightforward kit, but it's definitely there. Okay, so there we go. That's your decals, which look pretty good to me. A nice balance between being flat and satin. Okay, so they should go down really nice. Quite a bit of carrier film down on these guys. You probably catch it in the light. You can see over the US Air Force, but that's pretty standard. Some nice things. We've got some instrument panel decals down here, things like that, but generally pretty good. All of those. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, it doesn't actually. It is their own doing them. So, right, where do we start? Okay, let's just grab bags and go for it. As you can see, we've got lots and lots of bags to go through here. So we'll make our way through as quick as we can and just point out the highlights as we travel. Okay, so we've got a few sprues in each one. Really, you're not going to get an idea of the size of this thing until we get to the rear. Okay, so this is here. Don't panic when you see this. This is the internal cockpit. There's the internal sort of pressurized one in there, if you like. Then you've got your external one that's going to go round it. So really, you're just worried about this. And this is very nice. We've got some very nice level of detail down in here. All this ribbing work and everything else would actually come alive. We've got no real flash on any of these parts. That's all very good. Actually, I do have to say that is really, really nice. Some nice details down in there as well. You know, even the escape hatches are very nicely moulded and all those areas. So hopefully you can see the detail on those. As I say, don't take any notice of the blind side because you're never going to see it. This is all the important one down here. I'm guessing, and I'm just guessing, but it's supposed to have these chunks out of the top here and it's not short shots. It's just that they're not very universal. So I'm a little bit concerned there. Because up here, if you see where they are, let's see, it's not even to do with the pins. They've got moulded in here little gaps, and I'm assuming that these gaps up the top here and here, that's for the ejector, the locating tabs for the fuselage. It's just I'm a little bit worried why we've got these chunks out of here. I didn't see it in the instructions, and it could be short shots as it's going in there. It wouldn't be too much of a problem because no one's going to see it, but a little bit unfortunate if it is. Okay, so again, lovely detail. We've got raised riveting detail on all of these. I'm going to have to zip the camera around between different ones. I think it should be okay to go one to the other, but generally you might be able to see down here we've got some nice riveting detail on all of those. You know, no problem at all. Actually very crisp, very sharp, very nice. Okay, so again, down in this guy, we've got, if we just run around on the side camera, you can see some nice details. I love this riveting that they've all got in, all this sort of detail, things like that. The doors, the nose here looks a little bit soft, a little bit of flash around it, but we've got this area down on here where we've got some nice details going down on here, little map reading station, things like that, I presume that is. But you've got moulded in all the details you'd expect. So actually that is all very nice. We've got a blind side to this, so you've got lots of things, but it's nice to see. Okay, you've got two there, ejector pins down in there, and the door you're going to need something about, but everything else seems to be quite nice. No problem with that at all. Okay, we've got the floor with obviously the tie downs and everything else as you might imagine down there. Again, very nicely moulded. Catch it in the light as you can see, some nice. And we've got the flaps, okay, so you've got your flaps running down the back here. Again, we've got the inspection holes. You can see them, just about see them on this one. You catch it in the light. You can see all the inspection holes running right the way down the flaps and everything else. So that is actually very nice. Okay, so okay, bags. Going to be quite a long one to go through this. So engines, we can see down here. I am going to drop this one down. We'll have to zip them around, otherwise we've got them on all sides. So we've got the cowl flaps open and shut, as you can imagine on this one down on here. We've got some of the engine detail, some of the back plating. Okay, it's all got a little bit of flash on it. It's all a little bit, you know, clumsy sort of moulding, but it is all here, and some minimal cleanup. I think you could get away with it. It's just some of the smaller parts are a little bit softly moulded. Got the brake lines, as we can see down here. Again, some nice touches down there. Okay, and everything else, that's quite nice. Seats. So this is the cargo seats. We're going to talk about these in a moment, but you see, not too bad. A little bit of flash hanging around all around these. Going to need a little bit of cleanup, but again, you're not really going to see any of this. Okay, so this is actually the beds. They'll say the bases. They go on. They've all got little lap bolts moulded in. This is the beds. You can see on the side for the cots. Pretty good. Then we got the engine, so we can see a little bit of heavy burring up around these engines, a little bit of flash running around all of these. They're going to need a little bit of cleanup, you might imagine. This guy particularly is pretty nasty. These and these as well, and as you can see, we've got flash, heavy flash all over these parts down on here. Okay, the wheels a little bit flashy, but the internal details is fine on these. That's all good. The actual engine parts themselves around the front look pretty good. No problem, just a little bit clumsy, a little bit of flash running all over these parts. You can see down here on the props we've got flash and everything else. You know, it's going to be one of these things, you know, at the end of the day, I often say it, that I think is going to be a mirrored pair almost, because we've got a second engine, but that sprue on the top is separate. You know, this is the thing with Revell. We've built multiple Revell kits now, and we do find that, you know, when we've worked our way through them, that's a mirror of the other two. You do get lots of flash, a little bit clumsy moulding, few dodgy seams, shall we say. But the way I look at it is the kit's a quarter of the price of what you would normally pay if it was somebody else doing it. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm saving quite a lot of money, but I'm having to put in more time to do it. But there's not another one of these around, so if you want to do it, this is your only option. So bite the bullet, accept it, and move on with it, okay? So we've got very shiny up here. We've actually got some release agent still on the parts, you might notice, but generally, again, tiny little bit of flash on various bits and pieces, like down in here it's a little bit clumsy, and everything else, but we're halfway there. So we've got some flash in here. It's all right. It's all stuff that I think would clean up quite easily. Just when you look on the blind side, you can see a lot of this flash on a lot of the parts where you're going to have to clean them up. But as I said, once you've got past that thing of it's got flash, I'm going to deal with it, it's not too bad. A lot of this detail is actually very nicely done. All very good. The only thing is, I'd definitely give this sprue a wash before I attempted to do it, purely because it's got quite a lot of release agent on there, and I think that will affect your paintwork when you come to it. Okay, so this is the good one, because this is where you get a feel for the size of this thing. Okay, so this is the size of your bird, which you can't see now because we moved the camera in. Okay, let's move the camera out. There we go, that's how big this little lump is going to be. As you can see down here, we've got recessed panel lining on the fuselage, which isn't the best. It does fade in and out just a little bit, but it's pretty much there. I think a quick rescribe would definitely help this, just to make it feel a little bit better. Generally looking around it, no problems at all. As I say, it's just a little bit clumsy, especially when you come up to this leading edge down the top here. Some of these panel lines are a little bit all over the place, and as you can see, we've got a little bit of flash and that to clean up, which would be really important, especially when you're mounting this glass and getting these two halves together. Okay, internals for the cockpit. You can probably see in here, we've got a little bit of internals down in there, which is quite a nice touch for the cockpit wall and things like that. So actually that doesn't look too bad, and you can probably see on the tail, looking pretty good. Okay, these windows, obviously you've got clear parts you could go in, or because they're all round ones, you could do the crystal clear trick, okay, which is something when we did the Revell Transall. We did that aircraft. Obviously it's got sort of, you know, little portholes with the windows all the way down it. Same thing, crystal clear, put it in there, cotton cocktail stick, put it in, wrap it round, pull it away. No problem with it at all. And to be honest, I did look at it the other day, and I did that model some 6 years ago now, 5-6 years ago, and they're still crystal clear. Okay, so the last screw, last couple of screws. Okay, so let's do this one first. So we've got the wing sections down in here. So if I just drop this camera right down again so you can see the details. So hopefully you can get, there we go, that's like recessed detailing down on these wings. Some nice stuff. We've got the access holes and things like that down in there, as you can imagine, working all the way along. The flaps, as I say, they're very softly done, even like the light's not really catching them, extremely softly moulded, but you can catch them. It's a shame I can't catch this one in the light. You just about, there you go, see the details running all down there. Very nice. As I say, no real flash or any problems on there. We've got a little bit of internal detail down, so obviously for the main gear, looking up into those and everything else like that. And there you go, you can tell this is a new tool kit because if I catch it in the light, there we go, 2015 Revell. Okay, so there we go. And we got the tops, sorry, this is the bottoms. You can see down here, you've got a lot more detail for this access areas and everything else down there, just like that one, all the way in. Internally, obviously not much, just the back of these flaps. You've got a little tiny bit around the engine areas, things like that, as you can imagine. Okay, let's keep those flat in there. And then we've got the glass work. So, we can get into it. Even. So, give up. So down here, this is the all-important, the bit we want to look at is obviously your cockpit. Doesn't look too bad at all. Okay, it's a little bit of flash all around it, things like that. This is stuff you want to make sure you've got cleaned up and out of the way. Otherwise what's going to happen is it's going to make your cockpit fitting a nightmare. Generally the clear is very clear for the windows. I've got no problems on those whatsoever. This, if you did want to go down the window route, is obviously your actual windows down the side. Personally I wouldn't, I'd do it the other way. And then you've got obviously the navigation lumps and bumps for looking up at the stars and all of that, as they did back in the day, are in there. The windows, obviously the lights, things like that, no problem at all. I assume this is probably the cabin door with a window in it, the cockpit door, maybe with a little window in there, I'm not sure. Okay, but generally, as you can see, pretty nice, no problem with that at all. Very cleanly moulded, as in clarity, things like that. So everything else is fine, considering it's quite thick. I'd probably definitely do the old PVA trick for the windows though, instead of using those, because that way you don't have to worry about masking up, you don't have to worry about them obviously pushing through and all the rest of it, and it's a straightforward, easy fix. So there we go, that is Revell's C-54D, new tool. Prepare yourself for a build. Looking at it, I can imagine it's going to be a handful to go together, but it is the only C-54 on the market in 1/72 scale. So definitely, if you are a transport fan, you love this era of jets, of transport aircraft and radio engines and everything else like that, this is definitely the kit for you. Almost forgot. We've also got this guy. This is for the interior set for this one. I happened to see it at my stockist page at the time, and this is for the actual seats. So what you've actually got is the lap belts and down in here. The way I was looking at it is, because if you're going to have the big cargo doors open, you could see in there Looking at it now, you probably wouldn't, but if you did fancy detailing it up, down in here we've actually got a couple of sheets of photo etch. This is obviously just for the harnesses. You can bend them, make them look a little bit more realistic. To be honest, the ones in the kit are a little bit flashy, so you could replace it with these, and obviously you've got better lap belts that you could bend around and do it and everything else like that. But if you are interested in it, that's your actual one for it. So it's 73530, and that's for the internals for the cargo bay, not the cockpit, just the cargo bay interior. So I was actually thinking maybe a worthwhile investment. The cockpit, I was thinking probably not, no one's ever going to see it, but down in the back you probably would. So there we go. If you did want the upgrade set for it, that's for the cargo bay from Edard.